and we're back in record time.
Voices of Harpswell. This is a Grange project, and it's part of the state of Maine's bicentennial celebration, which thankfully has been put off for a year because I don't think we would have had time enough to talk to all the people we wanted to or do the things we want to do for the bicentennial. And in this way, also, it's a little more relaxed. And so we have a resident of Harpswell here who's been here most of her life. Some say she was from Brunswick, but I know she wasn't. And so could you tell us your name and where you were born? And
I'm Carol Bibber. I was Carol Morrill Bibber, and I was born on the Shore Acres Road in South Harpswell in my grandmother's homestead. I'm not sure how old this farmhouse is, but at least about 300 years old. And my great-grandparents bought it in 1901, and the original deed said that they paid $1 and other valuables for it. They lived there. My great-grandfather was what they called an ice farmer. They had an ice house, and they sold ice and probably vegetables from gardens and things. They was the only year-round residents there for a long time. There's other cottages there now, not on this property, but nearby. One of them was owned by Milton Bradley, the toy people, and another one was owned by Pillsbury Company, which was a flour company, and other notable people. And the house, as I said, was probably 300 years old. Up in the attic, the beams that go across are just logs cut in half, and it still had the bark on them. They were put together with wooden pegs. And there was a big barn that is gone now, but that was put together with wooden pegs. My grandmother Moody LeMay, was the only child, and she inherited the property, and she married Edgar LeMay, which he was from Canada, and they had 5 children, and one was my mother, and Arnold LeMay was only 15 when his father died, and he had to kind of take over the property and the business, and my grandmother bought an ice truck, and he had got a special license to drive it because he was too young to have a regular license, and she continued with the ice business until maybe 1948, and then her husband, my grandfather, they raised chickens and ducks and things like that, garden for supermarkets in Brunswick. And my mother passed away when I was 6, and I went with my grandmothers in the school year. Between Monday and Friday, I lived in Brunswick with my grandmother Morrill, and went to school. Weekends, school vacations, summers, whenever I could get here, I was in Harpswell with my grandmother LeMay, and I was there until I was married. And I married Philip Bibber, which was a neighbor, actually. And the Bibbers came to Harpswell in the early 1700s. The first Bibber was driven out from the Indians, and he returned later. But the Bibbers are a big family, too, of course. Like I said, I grew up with my grandparents, and I remember just being outside and playing and swimming and all those things. My grandmother LeMay was great with nature, and she taught me a lot about flowers and animals and all that kind of thing. And my two grandmothers were very different. My grandmother Morrow was very strict, and I just did what I was told. My grandmother LeMay, I walked all over. got away with a lot. But and Arnie and his wife Jen and their daughter Nan moved to the Shore Acres in probably 1950, and they stayed there until they had all passed away, and I inherited the property from my Uncle Arnie. And we have a place there. My youngest son Jim lives in the farmhouse now, and he keeps his eye on me, sometimes too much. But I don't know. I remember World War II. My grandmother had two sons in the service, and I remember the day that the war was over. I was in the house and I was listening to the Saturday morning kids shows on the radio, and all of a sudden the announcer broke in and he said, "The war is over, the war is over." And I ran out. My grandmother was in the flower garden, and I ran out and told her. And about that time, the sirens from the Oz and Bailey Island and Harpswell probably, and church bells and all those things started going off. And I don't know if it was shotguns or firecrackers or whatever. Anyway, there was noise all around. Huh. And I wanted to do something too. And I had a cap pistol, and my grandmother said, go get some caps for your cap pistol. So I run in the house and I got them, and there was a big flat rock that she used as a front door step, and she got a hammer from somewhere, and we sat down and hit these caps one at a time, taking turns with a hammer, and that was our big celebration for the war being over. And of course, the entertainment in Harpswell then was after that, when I was a teenager, was the Grange for the dances and things like that. But the kids they went ice skating, and growing up we spent most of our time outside. We was either ice skating, or we was sliding, or we was playing games, or we didn't sit in the house with electronics, of course.
One of the first times, Carol, I ever remember meeting you was at an ice skating party up at our farm, and you were there. There were probably at least half of the teenagers in town there, and a big bonfire on the ice.
Yeah. Well, there was about 10 of us from Harpswell. I didn't have many friends from Brunswick because I spent all my time down here. But there was about 10 of us in the group that went everywhere. We did all kinds of things together. And a couple of Christmases, Stanley Dyer was one of them, and his brother was at a big truck that he used with a Dyer's greenhouse, I guess. And they filled that with hay, and all of us got into the back of it, and we went all over town singing Christmas carols. And we stopped at Gladys Allen's, and she came out with a big bag of donuts. So we thought we really had it then. But we did it, I think, a couple of years. We did that. And but we just, we did all kinds of things. So there was a group of us, and we went to drive-in theaters, and we did a lot of things like that. And when I was a teenager, about 16 probably, I went to work down at Sunset Farm. It was a restaurant at that time, and I worked in the kitchen, and I worked there for 2 summers. And that time it was quite a elegant place, and I remember the shore dinners were $4.95, and they was stew, steamed, fried, and broiled or boiled, and then they had dessert plates, and they had what she called a relish tray, and coffee, and all that for the same price of the $4.95, which probably it's, I don't know what it would be today, but and then the second summer that I worked there, Philip and I got married, and he was a cook at Fat Boys in 1956, or summer 1956. He was the cook at Fat Boys, and then a couple of years later he went back into the Navy. He was in the Navy for 22 years, and he went back into the Navy. He had already been in for 4 years, and stayed till his retirement. And we had 4 children, and the only time I was ever away from Maine was 8 years that we lived in Pensacola, Florida, when Philip was in the Navy. And he got sent to California, and they were going to Vietnam. So he said, "What do you want to do? Do you want to stay here in Florida, or do you want to go home?" And I said, "I want to go home." So he had 10 days before he had to report to the ship over there, and they were leaving for Vietnam. So we got our stuff together and called the movers, and we had bought a house, and we sold that to somebody that he knew in the military for just taking over the payments, and we headed for Maine. Been here ever since.
Well, talk about school a little bit, will you, Carol? I know you were a good student.
Well, I don't know about that, but I went to school in Brunswick. We lived next door to the Longfellow School, so I went to Longfellow School my whole grade school, and then I went, of course, over to Brunswick High School. Graduated from there in 1956. Like I said, I was acquainted with the kids in Brunswick, but I didn't have any really close friends there. And school was different. You went in, you sat down, you kept quiet. Maybe you do now too, I don't know. But the teachers were all, were good. They were all old. What I thought at the time was older people. Looked at them, but I guess normal. I guess just normal school years, and I was in chorus in high school, and that was about the only thing that was. I didn't join any of the clubs or any of those kind of things, because I was going to be in Harpswell as soon as the school was out.
Well, I don't know about you, but when I went to Brunswick High School, we didn't participate in many sports or extracurricular activities because you had to walk home.
Right, yeah.
If your parents were working people, they couldn't come and get you, and you certainly didn't have your own car.
No.
So I can recall many days when I played baseball that I would walk home after baseball practice or after a game, and it was a long walk sometimes because there were few cars on the road, and you could walk for 5 or 10 miles before somebody picked you up.
Yeah. Well, like I said, when I was growing up, Marnie and Jen and them, they went to town every Saturday night, and they bought groceries, and then they went to the Cumberland Theater, to the movies, and after that they would go into Jarvis Restaurant, which is a bank now. They go in there for whatever, ice cream or something to eat or something like that. So that was a Saturday night thing. And then as I got older, the drive-ins came, and they would go to drive-ins every Annie and Jen and Nan would go to drive-ins on Saturday night. And I guess my first job was babysitting for the Frost kids that lived next door, Ned Frost, Ed and Sylvia Frost. And I got 25 cents an hour. And I did her Friday night dishes for her because they was going to Grange. And so that was, and I also, when I was a teenager, of 12 on, I picked strawberries down at Raymond Bibber's, and strawberries and raspberries. And I know one time Annie would pick me up. I'd go out at the end of the road, and Annie would pick me up and drop me off down to Raymond's. And they was building the fuel depot at the time, and this man stopped and asked, I guess, where I was going or whatever, and I told him I was waiting for my uncle and I was going down to Raymond's. He says, well, I'll give you a ride. And I said, no, that's okay, I'm going with Annie. My uncle picked me up. Oh, come on, I'll give you a ride. I'm going right down there. I work at the fuel depot. And I said, no. And so I said, my father was in construction. And I said, do you know Bud Morrill? Oh, yes, yeah, sure, I know Bud. And I says, he's my father. He took off like a bullet, and I never saw him again. So.
Sounded like you handled that one just about right.
Yeah. Well, if I hadn't mentioned my father, I don't know what.
Yeah.
My father was a huge, big man. I brought a picture of him there. Big man, and he was known for his strength and people paid attention, I guess, when he said something. But so that was one of my just first jobs. But in my grandparents, they were, like I said, I guess I said they were the only year-round people down there for a long, long time. And
well, I know Annie and Jen were, kind and generous people.
Right. Yeah.
To a fault, even.
Right. Yeah.
I know that Annie bought uniforms for the Harpswell baseball team out of his own pocket.
Right.
Because he loved baseball.
Right. Oh, he loved baseball, and that was his. And he never had any nephews or anybody that was really baseball fans or baseball players or whatever, and he coached the baseball team, I think, for kids for a while, and he was. He kept a baseball bat beside his front door. And one night there was somebody went up in the woods. He had construction. He did construction work around town. And he had a gas tank up in the woods. And somebody went up in there, and he jumped up and he run for the door, and he grabbed his baseball bat. And Jen said, where are you going? He said, I'm going up there and see who's up there. And she said, no, you're not, But that was his weapon of choice, was a baseball bat.
Yes, he was good with that.
Right, yeah. Yeah. And I think whoever was up there left before he went up, so they probably wasn't doing anything that they shouldn't have been, but no. No, they were very good to me. My cousin Nancy was Down syndrome, and she was their only child. And because we was only 6 weeks apart in our age, so we grew up kind of more like sisters than cousins. And at that time, because they didn't have any schools for special needs kids and stuff, and I think if she could have gone to school, she would have been, she would have done real well, because she was smart and learned things, and she never forgot anybody. If you didn't know who somebody's name was, you could ask her, and she'd tell you. And she had a TV, and she learned a lot from TV. She watched different programs on Sesame Street and things, but she was special to me because we were the same age and everything. So, and when they moved to, I was thinking one day that when they moved to the Shore Acres, I was lucky that they continued to let me come, you know, to let me, I was still, nothing changed. My life was still the same. And they moved from the Neils Point Road. They lived in that house up there now that Mrs. Bonnie had. And
Yeah.
that's where they lived.
That's right. And do you grow a garden, Carol, or did you grow a garden?
Did
Grow your own vegetables?
My grandmother did some, not as much. She had flower gardens all over, everywhere. The whole yard was flowers, and I half-heartedly had a garden, and I would go out. And I went out one day, and I was hoeing and weeding, and I came in, and I said to Philip, I said, I don't care what my grandmother said. That's not fun. I didn't. I wasn't good at it. I wasn't. I had a brown thumb.
I recall Arnie saying, somebody asked him if he had a garden and how big it was. He says, my garden's just up to Brunswick, just off Elm Street.
Yeah.
I mean, in the supermarket.
Right. Yeah.
And he had given up growing a garden a couple of years before that because it got full of weeds, and he didn't have the time to take care of it.
Yeah. But he used to have a good garden when he
did have a big one.
Yeah,
really.
He'd have a big one, and it would be good. He'd have, you know, all kinds of things. But of course, the last of his life, he couldn't do those kind of things anyway. But he stayed in his home until, I think he was in a nursing home for about 2 weeks, and that was it. And we made it somehow. I took care of him most of the time, but he you know, like you said, they were good people. They cared more about other people than they did themselves, and a lot of work that he did, he didn't get paid what he should have, and so.
And some people didn't pay him.
Well, yeah, I didn't want to say that, but some.
Well, I'll say it for you.
Yeah. And the people that, a lot of times, the people you would think could pay didn't.
Right.
And the ones that didn't have much or whatever, they always made sure that he was paid.
My brother and I worked for Arnold off and on when we were teenagers, and I recall we would come back to the house for dinner, for lunch.
Right.
Dinner.
Right.
Lunchtime was dinner time at their house most days.
Yeah.
And Arnold would stop the truck, and he'd get out, and usually the youngest Frost girl would be out playing in the yard somewhere.
That was Susie. Yeah.
Crinkle, wasn't it?
Crinkle, yeah, the youngest one.
And
Crinkle,
Arnold would holler across the field to her, "What did you learn today?"
Yeah.
And she was a pretty bright kid and outgoing, and she would start talking about everything she did that day.
Yeah.
Well, I built a little dam in the mud puddle, and I cut some of the grass, and I pulled up some of my mother's flowers, but I shouldn't tell you about that.
Yeah.
So he loved kids.
Right. Yeah.
And would strike up a conversation with them.
Yeah. Well, the Frost kids spent a lot of time over there, you know, and they would a lot of times sit with Nan, and she had things. She had Barbie dolls and things that she played with, and funny books, and all kinds of entertainment, and a TV, and the Frost kids spent quite a lot of time over there with. If they were there at lunchtime, sometimes Jen would feed them, and sometimes their mother would blow a whistle. She had a police whistle or whatever. Yeah. She'd blow the whistle, and Jen'd say, "I hear the whistle," and the kids would all file out and go home. But no, they always had a house full of kids usually.
I remember they also put on quite a meal. Jen was a wonderful cook.
Oh, she was, yeah,
And
yeah,
if my brother and I and Arnold would be out working on some piece of equipment, all of a sudden he'd say, "It's about time to take victuals."
yeah,
And he says, and so we'd all go in the house, and I don't know whether he and Jen had some signal or what or not, but everything would be steaming hot and
Right.
piled on the table.
yeah, yeah. No, she was, and they had a wood stove for years and years and years. She did all her baking in that wood stove, and I've got some of her recipes, and they aren't the same. You know, no, she was a fabulous cook, and she had, if anything, I never had a dog, but I had a billy goat, and if her cakes didn't come out good, the billy goat got them. Well, I think poor old Billy, when he died, I don't think he had a tooth left in his head, probably, but Arnie always had 2 cows, and he would sell one of the calves, and he'd keep the other one for meat for the winter. And my grandmother decided, I was probably, I don't know how old I was, 9 or 10 maybe. She decided she wanted a goat to eat bushes, to eat grass and bushes while the goat, she got a nanny goat. And nobody knew that the nanny goat was pregnant. So Arnie come in one morning and he said, "Oh, guess what? Guess what I found out in the barn this morning? Well, the cows were expecting, so, well, you got a calf." "Nope," he says, and he's standing and he's just grinning. And "No," he says, "there's a little billy goat out there." And so, of course, I jumped up and I said, oh boy, can I have him?" Grammy said, "No." She says, you know, billy goats, you don't have, billy goats aren't for play. Well, I went out and I played with him and everything, and I ended up, Billy was my my pet, and he was like a dog. He followed me around, and he went everywhere. And her nanny goat liked bushes, and she liked her Grammy's rose bushes, and she liked Grammy's hydrangea bushes, and she liked Grammy's nothing that Grammy wanted her to eat. But then I don't know, finally, I guess my grandmother sold the nanny goat or gave her away or whatever, but she kept Billy. Annie eventually sold his cow, so he had 1 cow left, and he sold it. And to John Rush in Brunswick. So I came down that weekend, and I knew that John Rush was coming to look at the cow. And I looked around and I didn't see the goat. And I said, "Where's Billy?" And Jen says, "John Rush bought him." Well, about that time I heard the goat. He heard my voice, and, she said that John Rush wanted him. And Annie said, "Oh, no." He says, "I can't sell him. He belongs to my niece. Can't sell him." So I had Billy until he passed away when we was in Florida. He was
Yeah.
yeah.
I remember him. He was an old goat
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
saw him.
Yeah. And he was big. He was but there was nothing mean about him. There was, because he had him neutered and whatever. But what do they call it for animals?
Do you play cribbage?
Not very well. Philip and I used to play cribbage when we went camping or something like that. We always had a cribbage board, and we had a camper, and we did a lot of traveling. We played cribbage at that time, and I wasn't real good at it. And when he won, it was skill. When I won, it was dumb luck.
Well, I asked that question because I know Arnold loved to play cribbage,
Right,
and
yeah.
he was so good at it.
Right.
I tried for 10 years to beat him at a game of cribbage, and
Yeah.
I never did.
Yeah.
Never.
No, I never played cribbage with Annie. I never tried that.
He was very good at
Yeah,
it.
yeah. No, I know he loved to play cribbage. Well, he used to go to the cribbage tournaments there at the whatever that the Kellogg Church
Yeah.
when they had him there. He always went and played cribbage with him. And anybody that would come in that wanted to play cribbage, he was always ready. So, but
Now, do you have grandchildren, Carol?
I've got what have I got? I've got 4 biological grandchildren, or 5, I guess now, and several step grandchildren, great grandchildren.
Yeah.
Yeah, and most of them, all the kids. Jerry lives. He and Jimmy don't have any children, but Jerry lives down by Stover's Point, down by Stover's Point. And of course, Jimmy lives next door. Susie lives in Richmond, and my daughter Carolyn and her family and live in Lisbon. And I've got a son-in-law. I've got a grandson that's in the Air Force, and he's stationed in Colorado. He and his family, and I haven't seen there's 3 grandchildren there, and I haven't seen them for a long time. But 3-4 years probably. Yeah. But the others are all close by. Susie has 2 children. One of them, with a girl, lives in Richmond, and her son, and so most of them are close by.
Oh, I was going to ask you about May baskets. You probably hung May baskets.
Yeah, we always hung May baskets, and because we hung them on my grandmother, and when Annie and Jen lived in North Harpswell, I was friendly with the 2 youngest Ricker girls, Cynthia and Rosie, and we would hang May baskets on them,
Yeah.
and then we would go to other places sometimes, other kids and hang the May
Yeah.
baskets. And
I remember doing that. 3 or 4 of us would get together
yeah,
and pool our money, and then
Right.
we'd go to the store and buy a big bag of penny candy.
right, yeah,
And somebody would provide a basket,
Right, yeah.
usually a used Easter basket,
right, yeah,
and
yeah.
pile of candy in.
yeah. No,
And,
and of course, after you hung the May basket, you'd run and hide, and they were supposed to. Well, that's the way we do it. They were supposed to find you, and
That's something that doesn't go on nowadays,
No.
I guess.
well, my kids were doing it. With Sandra Bailey and some of those, their friends. And I think the last time my bunch of kids hung a May basket on Sandra and Valerie Bailey. And they all run down the Littlefield Road and all down in there. And there was somebody down there, and they came out. And it was a man. He came out, and what are you kids doing running all over my property?
Yeah.
And they said, well, we was hanging a May basket. And of course, I guess he didn't know what that meant. He said, well, if you don't get out of here, I'm calling the sheriff.
Oh.
So, of course, they all come home disgusted that this man drove them away when they was
Yeah.
out hanging them. And I think that was the last time that they
yeah.
hung a May basket.
That's an indication of how much things have changed.
Right,
and,
yeah.
And how the culture has changed, I
Right,
think.
yeah, yeah.
People back when we were children would find out what was going on
Right.
and not threaten to call the sheriff,
Right.
because they knew the sheriff, even if they needed the sheriff, he wouldn't be there for 2 hours.
Right, yeah,
So,
right, yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was a Cub Scout leader for a couple of years with Beverly Charlie Bibber, and I belonged to the Scouting Association, and I was in charge of the cake tent for about 10 years, I guess. And at that time, it was down at the what we call the ball field. I guess it was Seth Williams Field, and the beanhole suppers were there. And I did the soliciting. I called all over, all over town for cakes, and it got to the point I was kind of embarrassed to call because at some of them I called twice. So we had 3 suppers. We had one in June, one in July, and one in August, and they fed around 800 people. And people can't fathom that now, but and so we had to have about 100 cakes a supper. And so I just call and they'd say, "Is that you, Carol?" And then, "Yeah, it's me." And so I did that for about 10 years. And then they moved up to the field across from the Knights, from Bath Knights. So they was up there for a while, and I think then they fire department got involved with it too, and they shared the profits. So. But that was a community thing. I mean, even people that didn't have scouts came and helped, and even before the fire department got involved.
I can remember participating in those as a Boy Scout.
Yeah.
They would buy their beans in, I guess they were 60-pound bags.
Yeah.
And our job was to dump them out on a great big table and pick all those beans over to make sure there wasn't a little rock or two in them.
Yeah, we did that too. At the Quonset hut. The Quonset hut was down the road from Shore Acres Road, and
then wash the beans.
Yeah. And of course the fire pit and all that had to be started the night before, and the day before actually, I guess, to put the beans in, and it was fun. It was a fun thing to do. And I was thinking they had the suppers at the Grange, and at that time when I was a teenager and everything, there wasn't any running water at the Grange.
Right. And
there was 2 wells across the road, and used to carry the water from those wells to the
so
Grange Hall.
You had a turn at that too.
Oh yeah.
My brother and I had a turn at that often.
Yeah.
So.
And I remember one time they had a supper, and I don't know why, but they got Rosie and Cynthia Ricker and I to wash dishes the next day. We went in, like they had the supper, I don't know if it was Friday night or Saturday night, and we went in the next day and washed dishes. And that's the only time I ever remember doing that. But
must have been quite a pile of dishes.
No, there was, I don't know, of course we were having fun. We made it more fun than anything. I don't know how good the dishes got washed, but but anyway, I don't think we ever did that again. But and we always went. The younger people and the older people, they all mingled. They were all, they at the dances or at anything. It was all the age groups that were there, and they would just seemed to get along and get. It was fun time. It was a good thing to do, or the only thing to do probably at that time.
Yeah, but everybody had fun.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But
did summer people go too?
Well, the summer people came for the dances in the summertime, of course, and a lot of them. They were friendly with some of the local kids too, of course. And
I remember that the hall was filled most every Friday night.
Yeah. And then they had a New Year's Eve dance every year, and then, like I said, the Saturday night dances during the summer, and the minstrel shows. They had those minstrel shows. Those were fun to go to. And there was a man that played the piano for the dances, and he played by ear. And if you wanted a certain song, he'd say, well, hum a little bit of it. Well, you'd try to hum a little bit of it, and he'd just start right in playing, and I never could figure out how he could do that, but yeah, had a good time at those things. And like I said, I married Philip Bibber, and his father was built lobster boats, or built boats. He was a boat builder, and most of the Bibbers were seagoing people. They weren't they weren't farmers and everything. And there was nothing to do with that really, but there used to be a road that came, I think it came down the Allen Point Road and down the Clark's Cove Road, and it went along the shore, and it was horse and buggy, and went across the end of the Bibber farm and came out across what would be Thompson's Road now, and over through the woods and to the point over there where my grandmother and grandfather lived. And then it came across somehow and went over into the woods, and it went through and came out at Meisenbach's and Porter's Road and Dunlap's, and then continued down, and I think connected back to the main road again.
Wow.
And when I was a kid, it was still there, you can still tell it. And my grandmother always called it going through the lane, because it came down through their property and went, like I said, over through the woods and crossed Lula Lehman's field and Arthur Knight's pasture. And
right. There was a similar thing in our neighborhood, sort of a lane or a back road that connected all the houses, and that's how people visited back and forth on foot and horseback. Right, yeah.
And of course they, just talk about visiting, they had party lines on the telephones, with party lines.
Yeah.
Sometimes 5 or 6 people on a party line, and they could visit that way, or they could listen in on the listen in on the neighbors and get all the gossip.
My mother used to say you didn't say anything on the party line that you didn't want broadcast.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, because it would be around town before morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, and your mother, of course, she wrote for the newspaper there for years and years and years.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
And you've written some poetry.
Yeah.
You got anything you care to recite?
I'd have to read it. And some things I shouldn't recite, maybe, but no.
But I look forward to your poems in the Anchor.
Yeah. Well, the last couple I sent in, he didn't put in, so I said I guess he figured I'd had my run. Yeah. Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. No, I've got about probably 40 more poems.
Oh, you have that much?
Yeah.
Wow.
And my intention was, after a while, I was going to self-publish a book or whatever. And Jimmy's a friend of his. She typed them all up for me, and she was Tina Baldwin, that she owned the Bookland.
Oh yeah.
And she typed them all up for me, and she was going to help me publish them. And of course, she got cancer and passed away, so that I kind of lost my enthusiasm or whatever after that. But I've got I've written poems about my grandparents, my life with my grandparents, and written one about the billy goat, and I don't know, just random.
Yeah.
I wrote one about this virus too, but.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Well.
Somebody said, you should send that in the Anchor, and I said, I don't know whether people might be offended.
Well, I think somebody should help you publish them.
Yeah, and I've got some that I've written since then that didn't get typed up, but
Yeah.
that
Well, I know of a lot of people like that, like Richard Westcott, for instance,
Right.
who wrote the book about the history of Harpswell.
Right.
But he passed away before, he had it completed, but he passed away before he could get it published.
Yeah, yeah.
And thankfully, the Historical Society published it. But
Yeah.
I think somebody should publish your
Yeah.
poems while
Yeah.
you're still kicking.
Yeah, well, yeah, but usually you're more famous after you're gone. So yeah,
Yeah, but that's an awful price to pay to become famous.
right, right, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I don't know. I don't know why I started doing it. I just,
Yeah, well, I for one think your poetry is pretty good.
Yeah.
I know that I couldn't write anything
Yeah.
as good.
well, sometimes in the middle of the night I think of something and I'll say, gee, that'd make a good poem. Get up in the morning and forgotten all about what it was what I thought about in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But no, it's fun. It's kind of a pastime, I guess.
Yeah.
Something to do. And a few years ago, I had them all copied and gave each one of my kids a copy of them, and
Good.
so
Good.
they have them. And then I got notes here and there about them and stuff. But that's about. I do some crocheting, and last year I made some what I called lap robes and gave them to the Legion for the nursing homes. And I've got 2 or 3 more that ready to go. So this year, if they want them. But so my grandmother, both of my grandmothers crocheted. They made beautiful crocheted things, and my grandmother LeMay tried to teach me, and I could crochet a chain, and that's about as far as it got. I couldn't follow directions. And the same with knitting. I couldn't follow directions on knitting. I can knit and purl, but I can't follow directions. So I guess I'm not creative in that type. In that.
Well, make something and decide later what it is.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. 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 No.
Well, anything else you want to talk about, Carol? Get in a lick or two while you've got the camera.
Well, like I said, the Bibber family, they were seagoing people, and they were a big family, and my grandmother knew them all. I didn't know Philip when I was a kid, of course, and all that. And then he went into the Navy, and he came back and joined even though he was a little bit older, he still joined the group. So got to know him that way, and
and he collected cars too
he
in his
collected
retirement, didn't he?
Yeah, he collected cars, all right, antiques. And I told the story. He bought a 49 Chrysler when we was in Florida for a second car, and he called it Maud for whatever reason. And so when we moved back to Maine, that was one of the things we brought. We towed it back with a station wagon, towed it back, and restored it and all that when he got up here. And he was transferred back to Rhode Island, and we still stayed in Maine, and he went back and forth weekends. And he'd leave Maud with me, and he'd take the Maud in car. Well, I got all kinds of instructions. You be careful of Maud. Don't do this and don't do that and don't do something else. And if you take it to town, make sure you park away from somebody and all that. And I said, yeah. I said, you don't care nothing about me. I said, all you care about's that car. And he sat there and kind of put his head down, and he looked up. He says, well, he says, I can always get me a new wife. He says, but they don't make 49 Chryslers anymore.
Did you hit him upside the head?
No, I should have. Yeah. So we still got Maud. She's sitting sitting in the corner of the garage.
Good,
With,
good.
After he passed away, I sold the other. We had the Chrysler limo and a '65 Plymouth convertible, and I sold them too because nobody was using them, and you know they were just sitting there. So
Yeah.
I sold them, but no, he loved antique cars, and we belonged to the Classic Car Club of America, that and the Maine Obsolete Auto League. We belonged to that, and we traveled all over, everywhere to car shows and things all over. We took one trip to California, and we towed an empty trailer for John Lee, and their Classic Car Club drove across the United States from Rhode Island to San Francisco.
Wow.
So we followed with a trailer to bring his car back, because they were going to fly back. So we belonged to Classic Car Club at that time, but we went over there and got his car.
I recall that Philip had a chauffeur's cap.
Yeah.
And at every Memorial Day parade, he would drive whoever the speaker was to the podium, and he would get out, go around the car, open the door for the speaker, and then put his hat back on and drive away.
Yeah.
It was a touch of class.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That was a limo. That was a Chrysler limo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, maybe he did it before that too. And the convertible was real speedy and powerful. And I got him a little sign in it, magnet, and put it on the dash, and it said, "Sit down, shut up, and hold on." And I said, he got into that car, he thought he was a teenager again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. No, because he was like I said, in the Navy, and he was on a ship. He was machinist mate, so it was all mostly seagoing, and he only had 4 years of shore duty in the whole 22 years. And he said, when he come home, he said, well, he says, I've been all over the world, but he says, I haven't been all over the United States. So we bought a camper, and we did a lot of, we went to all the states except Alaska and, can't remember, maybe Washington State. But we went to all the other,
Nice.
some of them we just passed through, but some, we went to all of them. So he got his wish to do, travel everywhere, almost everywhere. So I've had a good life. I said maybe it was tragic that my mother passed away, but I think I had a wonderful childhood.
Good.
And my father was in construction work, and we would have probably traveled around different places, and so probably I maybe had a better childhood in a way, that because I was here and I was with the family, extended family, aunts and uncles and cousins, and and one rooted in one place, and so I think that one of my aunts said one time, she said, I felt bad. She said, I've always felt bad you had such a horrible childhood. And I said, what do you mean? And, well, I said, well, it was maybe tragic. My mother passed away, but I said, I had a wonderful childhood.
Yeah.
I said, I had the best of both worlds, and I did. I'm content where I am. I can sit out and look out over the water, and I don't ever wish to be anywhere else. I never think, oh, gee, I wished I could be here or there or somewhere else. I'm where I want to be.
That's nice.
Yeah, and I'm very, very content where I am. And
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carol.
Hey ho, roll and go around Cape Horn to San Francisco. Shantyman, sing, boys, pull on the line, and we're back in record time. Bath down in Maine they built many tall ships. They were paired up and flanked and launched down the slips. The strength of our nation was built on the pine of the mast trees that harnessed the wind. There were schooners and sloops and all kinds of small craft. There were warships with cannon both forward and aft, and the queens of the seas, Downeasters and Clippers, mighty proud men were their skippers. With their hey-ho